It is now time to experience the buzz, a podcast that takes an inside look at amazing people doing amazing things. Get ready for some great conversation that will be fascinating, educational, and inspiring. We will also leave room to help small businesses in a big way. Now, here's your host, entrepreneur Steve Buzzard.
Hello, everyone. It is Experience the Buzz. I can't believe it. We are on episode 90. Oh, I never would have imagined. Wait, no, I would have imagined, because I told myself getting into this, if I was getting into it, it was going to be all in. And so again, it's not a sprint. It is definitely a marathon. Today's guest, Scott Gilbert. If you know Get a Clue store, and you should, they've been around for 30 years. We've got Scott Gilbert on the program today. He is going to tell us about the big news regarding the big move from Doco to Arden Fair. And of course, we're going to get a background as he speaks about his journey, as well as some great tips for our entrepreneurs. But right now, let's go ahead and get to our segment, as we always do, called What's the Buzz? So going to keep it very simple for you. We would love for you to just be a listener. That's the big thing. And you can chime in. There's a lot of different ways to get this program. Notably, you can go to my website. It's buzzardball.com. And once you get there, you will see the button to go in. In fact, it's a listen in button that goes to the podcast page. Again, we have 89, now 90 episodes that you can check out, featuring amazing people, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and personalities here from Sacramento. Now, if you just want to go onto the Apple podcast platform or Spotify or Google, you can just easily search Experience the Buzz podcast. The other fun thing is now over 2 months now, we are on YouTube. We have a YouTube presence, and a big thank you to my producer, Michael Kenobi. He has made that happen, as I was able to work with him during the pandemic on some virtual auctions. And he said, hey, I'm moving up to Sacramento. Would you be interested in having a producer for your podcast? I immediately say yes with a capital Y. And here we are. So we are doing the YouTube thing as well. So you got both an audio and a video platform for Experience the Buzz. So we're very excited about that. The other part is we would love to feature small businesses. Now, if you've been listening in, we started out with 6 sponsors, and sponsors will ebb and flow. We currently now have 4, of which I will tell you about. In fact, you know what? I'll give them to you. R5 Stitch and Print, Pit Boss Jerky, who, by the way, have been with me since day one when we started in January of 2020. And then coming on board not far after that, Little Whale Swim School, and Matt the Mortgage Guy. So listen, if you're a small business out there, there's some benefits here, because I'm all about the win-win relationship, which is, how do you want it to look? What do you want me to say? So what I'll do with my sponsors is I'll check in every couple of weeks and say, hey, is there any new information that you would like me to give out outside of the bullet points that I already have? And again, you can go on, you can customize what that looks like. And on buzzardball.com, there is a sponsor section that will give you a breakdown of what it is per month. Very cheap, very affordable. And of course, my job is to get the word out for you. And that is What's the Buzz. Now, let's get to our guest. It is episode number 90. It's Scott Gilbert of Get a Clue. You will see that I'm wearing a shirt, Sacramento versus everybody. We talk about this. There's a story behind this shirt. So I'll kind of, leave that carrot dangling out for you. Let's get right to it. It is Scott Gilbert of Get a Clue. Enjoy the conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of Experience the Buzz. Scott Gilbert of Get a Clue is with us. Yes, we're very excited. Scott, how are you today?
Doing good. Hanging in there.
Hanging in there. And let's just get right to it. We know Get a Clue has been an institution for 30 years. Hard to believe. It started in 1992. And I'm going to make a confession in just a minute, but let's get to that big news. And the big news is closing down inside of Doco, which I'm just going to say, I'm sad. But you know what? It's all about the pivot. You guys are moving to Arden Fair, in which you're going to join your other store, Goodstock. So kind of tell us about all that and how things are going.
Yeah, that's correct. So we opened the store in Doco. We were actually one of the first tenants to sign a lease down there. And we have a great relationship with the Kings. And we love being down there. It's an exciting place. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, you have to make some business decisions and, follow what makes sense rather than just your heart. So we, worked great with the Kings. The management was great there. Everything was good. But I just, at the end of the day, it still has not recovered downtown, I think, from the pandemic. There's a lot of state workers that haven't gone back. There's a lot of office workers that haven't gone back. And, so it hadn't recovered to the point to where it kind of made sense for us to stay. But we were there for 4 years. So we stayed quite a while. And so it was a tough decision on our part. But we're excited for the move. And the thought around that is it gives us we've always had success at Arden Fair. And it gives us a chance to consolidate our overhead and to share resources with our other business. And, everybody's talking about this recession that we're potentially going into. We had an opportunity and it made sense for us to make that pivot. And so we did. And, luckily, the Kings, the management there have been super supportive. They've always been supportive. And we haven't and are not closing the door to re-entering that market when it makes sense for them or us to go back down there. So we still have a great relationship with them. It's still amazing. But for now, I think it was just in both of our best interests to take a pause on it.
So Get a Clue store, I think everybody will know when you just say Spike Lee, because that's the iconic figure that is the entrance to the store. And I want to get right into it of how you came up with that and, what goes into that, because really that's what really made you guys stand out at Doco.
Well, that did for you, but you got to keep in mind, we've been around for 30 years. So that's just one small portion of it. Obviously, that's a Jordan thing. That's a Nike thing that we love and support. And so we did our own little Sacktown flip on that. And it's just such an iconic thing that we borrowed it for the Doco, entrance and our little marquee sign. And we love it. But, that's just our little nod to Spike Lee, the culture, Jordan, all of those good things that fit right into what we're doing and what we do at Get a Clue.
And here's the thing. I never like to assume that everybody knows what Get a Clue is. So for those that are kind of chiming in and, it's the first time, they're like, okay, Get a Clue store, what's going on? I guess I should let you have, give us the breakdown of what it is that you guys bring to the table.
So we opened Get a Clue, which is a streetwear clothing store in 1992. And as you can imagine, that's, a long time ago, 30 years ago. I don't even know that streetwear was even a term back then when we opened it. But, it's still the same store catering to the same clientele. So I would consider us streetwear retail pioneers because at the time, there really wasn't many stores like us anywhere in the United States. There was a few in New York, in the East Coast, and there wasn't really a lot on the West Coast. I would say we're probably the last. There might have been one or two that kind of opened around the same time. One in San Francisco, one in LA, and us. We may have been the first. We may have been the second, but we all kind of opened around the same time. Both of those stores are not around anymore, so I can say that we are the only store left. And we really kind of pioneered the whole streetwear retail thing. So that's kind of our claim to fame. So we cater towards streetwear, towards what is fashion for the younger kids. I would say our demographic is mostly men, and anywhere from 12, 13 to probably 25 would be the heart of our demographic.
Interesting, because this goes into my confession, Scott. So our connection, I should share with everybody. I've known Scott and his family because his boys did my buzzer ball basketball camp and actually have gone to the school that I was teaching at. And so that's our connection. And so this shirt that I'm wearing, that obviously you can only see visually, is the very first shirt that I got directly from Scott because I was enamored by the Sacramento versus everybody, which we will talk about, which is Mike Steeves, the owner, because there's another part of this that a lot of people don't know is that it's not just a store, but it is a store with a purpose. So I just want you to know I'm still wearing this. So my confession is I did not know about Get a Clue until you got to Doco. And I was trying to go through my brain like, okay, I know it's been around for a long time, but where was it before Doco? So help me out with that because I don't know if my memory's going, but I need some help on that one.
Do you want to confess, though, where you got that shirt specifically? You were so enamored with Sacramento versus everybody that do you want to confess where and when you actually got that?
Well, I know I got it at Get a Clue, and I got it.
No, you. It was during the pandemic, and we made arrangements for you to come by my house.
That's right, because we took a picture at your house.
That's right. That's right. And you were so enamored with that I just thought it was great that company stood out for you. And even in the trying times of the pandemic, you had to have that shirt.
Yes.
So we did all the things and did all the safety stuff and sprayed it all down and blah, blah, blah. But we still made that happen during the heart of the pandemic.
Yes. So let's give the timeline. Yeah. The timeline on that is I remember, I think I'd gone to a Kings game. The first time I stepped into the Get a Clue store, this was the thing I was attracted to. So that was before the pandemic. And you're right. The pandemic hit and it's like, obviously the store was closed. And I don't think the online thing had gotten going. And so I knew you were the owner. So I reached out to you and I said, hey, is there any way that I could purchase or get a shirt? And you said, you know what? I'll get you taken care of. I got the first one taken care of. And this is the one you picked. And I told you I was going to rep it like crazy.
Yeah, the store was closed. But, I had to go in there specifically to get it for you. So anyway, I just wanted to remind you of that because I think that's kind of a cool connection. It speaks volumes to how much you love that brand. But the question was, where was Get a Clue?
Yes, where was it?
The majority of the time. So we started off as, and I want to answer your question, but I'm going to hit on a couple of things also really quick. We started off, my business partner, Justin Bilbao, and I, as two young, early 20-somethings with no money. And I think we opened the store with about $5,000 between the two of us to open the store. So we started off on a little location on Broadway. And I can get into more about that, but I want to answer your question. The majority of the time, and where most people know us from, is Downtown Plaza. We were a fixture at Downtown Plaza for forever. And we were right in the center court, and we were Downtown Plaza, for the longest time. So that mall changed hands as far as ownership goes. Went through a lot of experiences with regard to it kind of going through a decline in tenancy and stuff like that. But we were a fixture there for 15 years, probably, maybe more. And only closed when they started demolition for the new Golden One Center.
So let's take it back. Let's take it back to that first store, 20-somethings, $5,000. I mean, give me the background on this. First of all, we want to talk about your co-owner, Justin, just like how you guys came together, this idea came about and you open your first store, like you said, near Broadway and stuff. Take us through that because that's pretty amazing that you did that as a 20-something back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Respect.
So at the time, thank you. So at the time, I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And at the time, I was working with Mason Wong, who most people know as a restaurateur and a nightclub owner around town. And I had brought, this is in the early 90s, 1991. I had just come back from a summer in London. And the house music scene, the rave scene was just crazy out there. It was just magical. So much fun. So I came back after a summer in Europe. It wasn't just in London, but most of that was in London, and came back, and the scene was starting to hit in San Francisco. So some of the DJs from the UK were starting to play there, and I was like, I have to bring this to Sacramento because that's my hometown. So, I just spent the summer there. I'm like, I'm going to throw some parties, some raves. So myself and some partners, not Justin, my current partner, through what were the first 4 like underground party raves, house music, where we brought all the top DJs from San Francisco here. It was at a secret location. You have to keep in mind, this is 91. It was like, this was all revolutionary stuff back then. So it was some abandoned warehouse somewhere. We set it up. It was so magical. And, thousands of people would show up for these things. And so we did 4 of those, and those were great. They were amazing. But I was thinking to myself, okay, that's fine. Once a month or once every couple of months doing those parties. I want a weekly gig. So I approached Mason, who at the time had a Thursday night that was a reggae night. He had a nightclub called The Rage.
Okay.
That was from Arden Mall, right next to Luau Garden, yes, which a lot of people knew. And so I approached him and I said, hey, Mason, I want to bring this to Sacramento. It's a new thing. It's house music. It's the rave scene. There's something special happening here, and I want to bring it to Sacramento. So I was able to talk him into allowing myself and my nightclub partners at the time take over the Thursday night, which was a reggae night. And, he's like, okay, Scott, he didn't really understand it all that much. And he's like, all right, if you can bring enough people to meet the bar minimum, I think at the time it was something kind of small, like $2,000, right, at the bar, then, the rest is yours and you guys can do your thing. So that was kind of the entrepreneurial thing. So we did that, and I brought all the best DJs because I had relationships with them, and I've been going down to San Francisco for forever, going to their parties and knew them all. So I brought them all in, and it was great. It was amazing, and it went off on a Thursday night. I mean, we were getting 1,000 people there on a Thursday night, to the point where we had to expand the club out the back door, and there's a back little loading dock area where there were the trash cans and whatnot. We had to cordon that off to fit all the people in there. And that was on a Thursday night. It wasn't even a weekend night. But it was something special happening. So that was a weekly gig. And we did that for a year or two. And then I was like, you know what? I need a daily gig. I don't want just once a week gig. I want something, a business that I could do every single day. So I'd always been into fashion. I love fashion. I was best dressed at high school when I went to high school. It was always something that I loved, that interested me, on business. And so there was a store called, I think it was called Behind the Post Office on Haight Street in San Francisco, that kind of had some of the brands that were catering to the rave scene and the hip hop scene at the time, what was early streetwear. Some of the brands were Fresh Jive and, they've since gone, but so I was like, we're going to open a store. And so I started talking about opening the store. And this is when I was throwing nightclubs. A mutual friend of ours said, hey, I've got a buddy who's talking about the same thing, which was Justin. Let me introduce you guys. We're young, didn't know. Yes, let's do it. So I sold my car. He got some money from his parents. And we opened up our first location, which I think was 1,200 square feet. And that's $5,000 is build out and merchandise. Wow. So as you can imagine, it was like a small shop, and so we both had other jobs, and we would take turns running the shop back then. So, I had my days, he had his days, and we would go make money at our other jobs. Mine was my nightclub. His was working at his parents' restaurant, which his parents have an iconic restaurant or had an iconic restaurant in Auburn called Katrina's Cafe that most people might know. And so he worked there. And so that's how we kind of got going on the shop. And we just blindly got together, just decided we were going to do this, and we did it. And, there wasn't anything like it anywhere close by. So at the time, It was, one of the only, there was maybe a little bit on the East Coast, but it was pretty unique.
All right, great first segment there was Scott Gilbert diving into the big news surrounding Get a Clue. And I just love the passion that Scott is being able to share with us today. Let's go ahead and talk about our sponsors. We go 2 and 2 on the segment breaks. The original two, R5 Stitch and Print and Pit Boss Jerky. R5 Stitch and Print, run by Troy Rousey. We tell his story in episode 25. Pit Boss Jerky, ran by Joe Green. We tell his story in episode 26. So you can find that on buzzardball.com. They go back to back. Great conversations with these two gentlemen. Now, the question is, what do they do? Well, when it comes to Troy and R5 Stitch and Print, they're all about screen printing and embroidery with high precision stitching and machines that can do just about everything. These hats done by R5 Stitch and Print. I've done a lot of work with Troy, and I'll tell you, the quality of the product is very good. The other part that is great is they have hired a graphic designer. Why is that important? Well, whether you need help with a logo or even ideas to come up with, say, your business, what are some items that I can give to my people that are in my business? Grace, Troy, and the R5 team will help you out. Now, how can you find them? r5print.com or call the number 916-454-3773. Now, Pit Boss Jerky, what does that relate to? Well, it's beef jerky. Who does not love beef jerky? And what if I told you that this is the best beef jerky made by someone who is right here in Sacramento? Here's another facet of it. There are 13 different flavors. That's right. And Joe Green is the pit boss, and you can actually talk directly to Joe and place your order. It is affordable and it is great. It's well worth it. His number is 916-769-6807. And I know that's his personal number, but we like to call that the order board. Again, 916-769-6807. Again, I mentioned 13 incredible flavors. The latest one came out a few months ago called White Bull's Barbecue. Would you know this? Check this out. There's one for Experience the Buzz. That's right. We named one after the show. And so we were flavor number 12. And then I had to ask Joe, it's been a while. It's like, what is the top 5? So he gave me the top 5 flavors. And up top are pepper garlic, which I believe is one of the originals, along with my favorite before Experience the Buzz, raspberry apple chipotle. Just think about that flavor for a second, followed by honey gold, Island Teriyaki, and Experience the Buzz coming in at number 5. Big thank you to Troy. Big thank you to Joe, R5 Stitch and Print, Pit Boss Jerky, 2 proud sponsors right here on Experience the Buzz. Now, let's get back to our conversation with the one and only Scott Gilbert of Get a Clue.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
Let's reset here. Scott Gilbert is our clue. He is the co-owner, co-founder of Get a Clue. They also have Goodstock. Both are now located in Arden Fair Mall. We kind of started the podcast with the fact that there's big news that they're going to go away from Doco, move into Arden Fair with the ability to hopefully maybe come back. We'll just see how things go. Of course, the economy is the economy. We got to keep a watch on that. But I think a wise move by Scott and Justin to kind of get ahead of things. I think that's what you guys are trying to do and doing it well. But now we're getting the story of Get a Clue. I've made my confession. My confession is I didn't know much about Get a Clue beforehand, but it has been around for 30 years, folks, since 1992. And Scott, I love the fact that you go to London, you have that moment, you're able to bring it back, and that could go either way. It could have, just totally bombed, but it looks like, as you described, it was a big hit. But it just that entrepreneur spirit that you're talking about, you just wanted to kind of keep it going. So take me through phase 2, which would be moving from that initial store into downtown, because it's amazing when you talk about that. I think about the evolution of downtown. In my days, as a kid, being a Sacramento guy, was Old Sac, right? It was Old Sac before all the new stuff came. Then it was downtown, where you guys were residing, and now we have the Golden One Center. So I kind of look at it as in 3 phases, and it's cool that you've been a big part of that. But talk to me about phase 2, about now getting into a bigger store and obviously having a much, I guess, bigger presence.
So it was unique, and one thing that one point I want to make is it wasn't necessarily an instant success, because at the time the market was small that we were catering to, but it was special. and I knew it had some magic to it, but it just wasn't something that was known to the general public. So we didn't have a huge market like we do now that we appealed to. So there was, going into phase 2. Well, one thing I want to say, some of the reasons why I knew it was special and magical was, okay, so we always sold like music, like mixtapes and stuff like that. We always had DJs in the store and turntables, and we would we even had a little section that sold records, and we would have house DJs, we called them house DJs that were there every day hanging out, that were mixing records when people came in, and music is so much part of our thing. So our very first house DJ was a guy called Mixmaster Mike. Have you heard of him? Okay.
I haven't.
So he was part of what is the famous Rocksteady crew. Okay. And so he knew all the iconic music figures at the time because he was part of the Rocksteady crew, but he had connections in Sacramento and he was into everything that we were doing. So he was our first house DJ. So I would look through his little black book of people that he had numbers to. And it was like everyone, like Africa Bambaataa, the Beastie Boys, blah, blah, blah. So at some point, he had heard that the Beastie Boys were looking for a new DJ, okay? That their DJ Hurricane, was no longer with them, and they were looking for. So he called up, it was, I think it was Ad Rock, and he did a little audition for him on his, back then, people just had recorders on their phone. Of course, they all knew who Mixmaster Mike was because he had won the DMC DJ tournament for scratching, and he was part of the Invisible Scratch Pickles, which were all DJ crews back then who were well known. But so he did the audition. The Beastie Boys called him back, and he became at that point the Beastie Boys DJ. So from that point on, Mixmaster Mike is and was the Beastie Boy DJ until they split up. So that was our house DJ. He went from being our house DJ to the Beastie Boys DJ and was on tour with them. And, a lot of people in our scene will know Mixmaster Mike is a big star. But, that's how like you're part of something special. So anyway, I just wanted to tell that little story.
No, that's great. I love that.
So how did we transition? Well, a lot of it was, we weren't making very much money in the beginning. We had other jobs to support ourselves, and we did it as a labor of love. And I would even say, like, the first 4 years, Justin and I never took a dime out of the business. We worked there as a labor of love, and every amount of profit that we made, we put back into the business. So that was 4 years of us doing that. And what we would do is we would just grow our inventory. In order to grow your sales, you needed to grow your inventory. So we would grow our inventory, and then we always had our eyes on better locations. So we moved from Broadway to 10th Street, which is where the Sawyer is now. It's actually the same building. We were there for 1 year, and then we moved on to K Street back when it was an outdoor K Street mall, and we were right next door to Tower Records there for a long time. So a lot of people got to know us back then when we were there out on the outside K Street Mall. And right next door to Tower Records, they would have Thursday Night Market, I think it was, where everybody would go. There was all the vendors up and down K Street back then and big crowds of people. And we had a store there. So I think a lot of older people would know us that. And then we moved into Downtown Plaza. So it was, 4 years of us making those strategic moves, increasing our inventory, and increasing our visibility with better locations. So it wasn't like just an instant success. It was a lot of work and perseverance and us, like just sticking with it.
Okay, so with that move, because the Tower Records is the Solomons now, correct? Is that
we're right?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I'm putting all the pieces together. Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, so you get in, you've established yourself. It's now 30 years, and here you are now. But yet, even though you're making the move to Arden Fair, like, you've really got to feel great about what you've been able to establish. Anybody that can stay in business and then go on this journey that you've described for us for 30 years, it's like, again, I just say respect, because running a type of store like you have, and being in brick and mortar, then going through a pandemic, it's like, you know what? You faced it and you said, okay, we're going to make another pivot. That was the big thing we all learned in the pandemic as small business owners is, what is the pivot going to be? And that's hard for a brick and mortar store. So I applaud the effort that you and Justin are out in front of it, and we're still going to be able to get a clue. I mean, that's a big deal,
Yeah,
Scott.
well, we've been doing this a long time, and I would say we've kind of been
Absolutely.
through everything. So before the pandemic, we went through the recession. And that was the first time we'd been through a recession. We saw our sales get cut in half. And that was when we were in Downtown Plaza. And, that was also a time that was, super new, scary. And, we had to figure out how we were going to survive if we wanted to survive. Now, it's a passion for us. I think anything that you do that you want to be successful at, you have to have that passion. It can't just be about the money. And so we learned a lot during the recession, which was, I believe, 08-ish?
Yeah, 08. Yeah, it's hard to believe.
Recession. So we learned a lot back then. So when the pandemic hit, it wasn't as scary. Although it was a whole new thing, it wasn't as scary. But we did learn how to pivot. And in brick and mortar retail clothing is notoriously difficult business. We're competing with so many people. It's a fairly easy barrier of entry to get into. Everybody wants to own a store, and anybody with a little bit of dollars in their pocket can open a store, right? So you always have a new competitor coming in, somebody trying to compete with you. So over time, that learning that pivot has been that, and the perseverance has been one of the main keys to our success.
And before the pandemic, like being at Doco, like what did that do for you? I'm sure that just like was kind of that nice like finisher, like, okay, here we are. We've been around for a long time. And then you have that partnership with the Kings. I would imagine a lot of Kings players made their way through your doors.
It did. And, because we run a unique business, we've kind of always had Stars and Kings players coming through our doors because we sell what they want. We appeal to them. So, it was exciting. It's an exciting time to be involved in what I considered was a downtown renaissance. The challenge that the Kings were faced is, how are we going to turn that into a destination shopping place? Because at the end of the day, it's got to be a destination shopping place. You can't strictly rely on just events to do business. It's not enough. To make the numbers add up and make sense in a real retail mall atmosphere. It's got to be more than that. You have to have people there, people shopping all the time. So that was a challenge that they had. And I know that, with the pandemic, they were limited on the number of spaces. One of the things, that we ran into that was a challenge was people that come down to these events don't necessarily want to buy a bunch of clothes and have them in a bag and lug them to a concert with them. They want to go buy a concert t-shirt, throw it on, and be done. So, that was a problem that we were always trying to solve, being down there selling clothes, if we were just catering to the people going to the concerts, that was one thing. If they were 20% of our business, then it's not that big of a problem. But, when those people are 70% of our business, then it becomes a bigger problem for us to solve. So, that was always that was always a challenge that we were dealing with, being down there. But,
all right, Scott. Well, let's shift gears here, because here you are, and people may think, okay, does he just own the store? Is that what he does? Well, this is an entrepreneur that we're talking to, everybody. So, his mind's always thinking, there's ideas always going. But you do have a day job. And can you express and tell us what that is? Because you do something else outside of owning Get a Clue.
Well, I do. Yes. The only thing I currently do in addition to owning Get a Clue is real estate. I do have my real estate license, and I love real estate. And, I love investing in real estate. I love doing real estate improvements. So I do have my real estate license, and I do sell real estate. And that is also a passion for me.
And speak to that. Let's just speak to the entrepreneur.
Okay.
Like I'm inspired by just listening to you, being an entrepreneur myself. So it's great to speak to like-minded people. I can feel your passion for what you do. Obviously, we're not diving into the real estate part. This is more about the get a clue part. But there's young entrepreneurs out there, and the college thing. I know it's been hard for a lot of kids to either complete it. I know that's going personally on with my kids. I've had two. One wasn't able to get to the finish line. I had to sit him down. I said, Max, listen, guess what? It doesn't define you. The college education does not define you. And I'm just curious about what your education was, because it seems like your entrepreneur spirit is the main thing that really drove you.
It did drive me. And, I was in college. I went to junior college. I went to Sierra College. And I got my 2-year degree there. And at the time, I thought I wanted to be a chiropractor. And I was applying to Davis, and then, really the entrepreneurial spirit came out in me. And that's when, I decided to take a summer in Europe, and I came back and I just realized that, I needed to take a break and, do some entrepreneurial things, and, just really never went back. So, although my business partner has a degree and went to FIDM, which is the Fashion Institute, I'm just strictly School of Hard Knocks, and rely on instinct and just powering through. So not a lot of formal education with regard to, the businesses that I have and run. But I think, I just had a knack for it, so.
Yeah. And I think that's the message. This is based on an experience that you had in London. Had nothing to do with school. That was just you saying, "Hey, I'm gonna take a trip over there." Probably not having a plan, maybe going over there, but coming out of it, it's got you to where you are today. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is that, like, I think of myself. I had an education, but it was in broadcasting. I got to do that for 14 years, but that has not defined my life. Everything I've done has nothing to do with broadcasting. There might be some aspects of it, but it's just amazing to me. And that's the thing I like to promote to young people is like, listen, don't let the college part define you. And in no way am I saying, hey, don't go to college. I'm not saying that, but I'm like, just keep your mind open for ideas that you're going to be passionate about, because the old adage is, don't you want to do something that you love? And I see too many kids now that are getting degrees, but then they go into jobs that they either don't like, or they're working at a restaurant when they're supposed to be a doctor. You know what I'm saying? So could you speak to that a little bit?
I'd love to speak to that. Actually, that's something that that I'm kind of passionate about. If I could give some advice to young people, which I do mentor a lot of young people, I would say focus on one small thing, because that's what I found in my life is that, I focused on doing the promotions, the nightclub promotions, which I was successful at, but that led me to my next thing. And that led me to my next thing. And so you just never know so you focus on one thing you're passionate about, and don't focus on the money. Focus on being successful at it and being happy, waking up every day in the morning and loving what you're doing. And I think, that's more important, to be doing something that you love, because you only live once. And, I wasn't cut out for being a chiropractor or that, the 9 to 5. It just has, and I've tried it a couple of times, and it's just never appealed to, to me, to my soul. So, that's what I would say is, just focus on doing something that you love. And even if it isn't where you end up being, it could lead you to the next step, which could lead you to the next step. And that's what I've experienced in my life.
I love that. And I call it just adding like tools to your tool belt, right?
Correct.
It just adds, and then it just goes forward. And just having that passion is the big thing. Look at the things that you do. So get a clue, and being a real estate agent. I mean, being in real estate, you get to set your own schedule. And I think there's a lot more appeal to people with not having the 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is necessary for most people. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but I like the freedom of having the schedule. I just figured that out when I retired. I'm like, man, I love the school that I taught at, but it's kind of nice not to be tied to the 9 to 5. Like I get to speak to Scott Gilbert and do a podcast.
Yeah, and it's one of the other insights that I would have would be, don't limit yourself. I think I limited myself too long. I only got my real estate license 5 years ago. And it was something that I was interested in and wanted to do way before that. But there was something inside of me that said, you have to do, no, you're a store owner, you're retail, you can't do that too. And that's totally incorrect. You can do multiple things and be successful at all of them and figure out how to make them fit your life. With real estate, I've really figured out how I can make it fit my life appropriately. And it's great. And I get to do it in a way that is meaningful to me. And so, which is everything. It's something that I love. And so that sort of business gives me the freedom to be able to do that. So, and I feel like I waited too long to just pull the trigger and make that decision that, hey, I'm just going to go for it with the real estate. And, I'm not going to lie. It's tough at my age to go from being the boss at a store, which I've been, making all the decisions, to starting something new and being at the very bottom, and having these rock star kids, I call them kids, that are 10 years younger than me, that are killing it and, teaching me what to do. And so that in and of itself is a humbling experience doing that. But, I've learned so much from that experience, from, humbling myself and just not knowing anything and being okay with sucking at something for a while to become good at it, so.
Amazing conversation. Wow. So thankful to Scott and being able to find out the history of a great store that has been here in Sacramento, folks, for 30 years. That is an incredible stat right there, to be in business for that long. And how about the fact that the store that is opening up in Arden Fair Mall is going to be his 21st store that is opening. Oh my goodness. Great stuff. So Scott, thank you again. But let's talk about our sponsors. We got two more to tell you about: Little Whale Swim School and Matt the Mortgage Guy. Little Whale Swim School, the premier swim school here in Sacramento, located at 4106 El Camino Avenue. You can find them on the web, on the internet, at littlewhaleswim.com. And as we know, it's always summer at Little Whale, and it is summertime. Summer officially will start later here in June, but it is hot, and that means it's time to get your kids, even adults. There are classes for everybody. You can enjoy a custom-built indoor facility at that El Camino location. That parking lot is always bumping when I go over there and buy it. And from babies to adults, like I said, Little Whale has it covered. Also, if you are looking to get a job, that's right, teenagers, young college kids, contact Little Whale Swim. You can become one of the workers at Little Whale Swim School. I don't know if they call them lifeguards or assistant coaches or whatever, but check them out. Anya will take care of you. Again, we want to thank Little Whale Swim School. And finally, Matt the Mortgage Guy. That is Matt Gougé. He is featured in episode 28. Going back to Anya, her story is told in episode 6, so you can check those out in the archives. So Matt wrote this great line. So I'm just going to read it verbatim. In a real estate market like this one, you need a lending team that has a great reputation and can help get your offer accepted. You also need a lender that has great processes in place to be able to close in a timely fashion. Matt, the Mortgage Guy, and his team are who you want in your corner. Matt, that is well done. In fact, you can shoot them a message at team@mtmg.com. I think he's going to get me on that one. Say, Steve, why can't you just say it naturally? But there you go. And I will say personally, he helped us with the refinance. Took 1 month from start to finish. Also has helped us with some other things. Check out the website, mtmg.com. You can get tools like the home purchase qualifier, the refinance rate checker, of course, today's mortgage rates, and loan option. And lastly, check out Matt on YouTube, Big Star. Over 500 videos, over 1 million viewers. He is simply there to educate. He also does a live show every Monday at 6 o'clock where he will take you and your questions. So again, thank you, Little Whale Swim School, Matt the Mortgage Guy. Now let's get to our third segment. Enjoy.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
Pearls of wisdom coming from Scott Gilbert. I love it so much. You had mentioned the word mentor, and I think that's an important aspect that we should get out to the listeners is that your store, yes, it had clothing line. It had everything you wanted, but you guys had a purpose of being able to now showcase local people in this industry. One being here, Mike Steves, who was, featured on this podcast. And, actually Mike and I have grown to be friends now out of this. And it was all based on this shirt right here. I was fascinated by it. And then I had the opportunity to actually directly contact him. And, it's interesting with the podcasts I've done most of them in this format, but he insisted, Steve, I want you to come out to my shop. So his personal shop. Now, his stuff is featured in your store, and I'll get to more of that in a moment, but speak to that mentorship because the purpose behind Get a Clue, I don't think people understand the power of that impact that you guys have.
Right. So we, realized a long time ago, I can't put my finger on when exactly we made the decision, but we realized long ago that the best way that I felt that we could give back would be to mentor, because there's a lot of young kids that have entrepreneurial dreams, especially in clothing. They've got their t-shirt designs, they're small, they're local. What can we do to help them? And, a lot of them were my employees. There were people that would come in the store. They had these ideas and dreams, but how do you get it from something that's just an idea in your head to something that's legitimate and like has a shot at really doing something or making a wave? And I knew we had the insight on that. So we made a decision, and it was at least 20 years ago, that we were going to be intentional in mentoring kids and putting in like up and coming local brands in our store and putting them right next to national brands and giving the kids feedback and giving them a shot that I don't think anybody else would give them. So 2 examples of that are Mike Steves, who, you know and love, and he is definitely somebody who we love. And then also the gentleman that does Angry Tuna too. He's another guy that we've really championed too, and he's really grown his business. But back to Mike, he was just a young guy, and we took him under our wing. But I would say at any given time, we like to have somewhere between 5 and 10 local brands in our store that we're promoting. And it's really a labor of love, but we don't do it for free. But it's not a big money maker. But, one of the reasons we don't do it for free is because they need to understand how the business works. And So they need to understand, there are profit margins. You need to, be understanding what something costs at wholesale. How, what's the manufacturing cost? How do you get the manufacturing costs down? What you should be selling it to a store at wholesale. Why is it important? How do the margins work? Like, why do you have to be interested in how much a store is making on your product, and product placement, and how the visual displays and work, and how, how often you should come out with new product, and how much you need to have. Like, does it make a wave if you just have one shirt? Well, I think, Steve's is he's a unicorn with that shirt. That's very, very rarely, I've cut him so many checks off of that one style of shirt, more so than anybody ever. But he's smart about how he does it. He comes out with,
yes, he is.
He has that same logo, which I think appeals to a broad audience. But he puts it on different stuff. He comes out with new colors. He does different collabs. He puts it on different things. He promotes it. He didn't just like put it out for 6 months and then be like, okay, I've done that, and bury it. He realized that that logo on his shirt had legs. And so he's really taken advantage of that and listened to what we've told him. And I think he's really maximized the exposure and the profit. He's always been good at that, because before he had that, he had a magazine. So he's always been good at exposure, and he has the entrepreneurial spirit as well. And he's a good.
And just so you know, he's like, I think he's 27 now. So, I mean,
Yeah.
this goes back. I mean, he was a young 20, which that's interesting, because that's similar to you and your partner, where you guys were the young 20s doing it. And I think the thing that really impressed me, amongst other things, there's a list, but his attention to detail. Like when I went into his mini store, okay, that he has actually at his house, everything was like so particular. And it was interesting because my first visit there, before we decided to do the interview, he says, yeah, just take a look around. I'm going to go help my daughter with something. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm looking around, and I'm kind of looking at the shirts. And I think I put my hand on one and maybe brought it out and then put it back, which I thought I did good. He walks in and he directly goes to that spot, that shirt, and he refolds. And I said, oh, did I do something wrong? He's no, it's just me. There's a particular way that I have things.
Right.
Then he starts talking about like even the fonts and everything in detail. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty amazing. So you can tell that his attention to detail is like, it's top shelf. And that impressed me. And I love the fact that you've been a part of his journey, because he's been now doing this for a while. And another part of it, Scott, and I'm sure he shared this with you, but some of the things that he talked about that he said have been the most rewarding for him outside of his beautiful daughter is being able to have those opportunities. I guess there's, kids with their report cards, they can bring them in. And they get a Sacramento versus everybody t-shirt. And he said, wow, I never thought I would be in this position. And listen, he gave you guys a couple of shout outs throughout. In fact, I think it was 3 or 4, just because I know he's very thankful to both you and Justin for what you've done for him.
Well, it kind of goes both ways. We gather inspiration from him, and people like him. And, it keeps us young, being able to work with young, energetic people with new ideas. So it really goes both ways. We benefit just as much from the young entrepreneurs that we mentor, I feel, as they benefit from our, experience with them, if they're open to listening to the advice that we have. Now, Mike, for example, he's always been open to it. And he has that entrepreneurial spirit. And, he's just somebody who's very humble, grateful, and, coachable. And I know you being a coach, like there are certain people that, just won't listen. They've got to learn themselves. Mike's not that guy. He definitely wants to gather, all the info that he can so he can make the moves. And, it's really shown in his success. So I know he's sponsored Buzzard Ball stuff now.
Yes.
Which is like, a big deal for him to be able to do that. And like I said, he's a humble guy. So I know it fills him with pride when he can see those Buzzard Ball jerseys with his logo on them. Like I would be prideful to see my logo on them, and for him to see that, that's something amazing. So I'm very proud that I was able to make the connection between you two. And I do understand why you two really hit it off and are good friends. And it's all good stuff. All great.
Yeah,
network.
Scott, and that was like a proud moment for me, because that was something that he initiated. He basically just said, hey, how can we partner together? And I threw out a few ideas. He's all, hey, let's just throw the logo on the uniform. I'm like, sure, let's make it happen. He's all, you know what? Let's get t-shirts for everybody, and I'll make a special Buzzard Ball edition. So we did 100 of those. So it's like a limited edition, classic black and yellow, which are the colors here of Experience the Buzz. So good stuff. So Scott, I wanted to finish out this way, and actually 2 things, because you've told us about your life up until the young 20s. I've never known. Did you grow up in Sacramento? Like what was the childhood like?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town called Camino. Most people know it as Apple Hill, right?
Yes.
So I grew up there. I went to El Dorado High School. And it was a very small community, a great place to grow up, and I loved everything about it. It was fun. So I grew up there, and then moved down. My parents moved to Folsom when I was in high school, maybe my junior year in high school. But I had my driver's license, so I still commuted up there, finished high school out up there, and then started my journey down here, so in Sacramento. So I've been in Sacramento ever since then. I have, done a ton of traveling, but I'd say I've never called home any other place other than Sacramento.
Nice. Okay, so the finishing thought is Get a Clue opening in Arden Fair. Give us the update. I know you guys are, getting the store ready. And just give us the update on that so people can get excited about I would say, the re-grand opening of another location.
So an interesting fact is I counted how many stores I've opened, because we had a store back in the day called City Kicks at Roseville Galleria. It was a shoe store. So I've counted how many stores I've built and opened. The Dogo was my 20th store that I had built and opened. Just to give you an idea, 20. So in 30 years, I've built and opened 20 stores. So this will be our 21st store that we built and opened or remodeled. And so we are currently in the process of getting it all set up. We have closed Dogo, moved out of there, and we have some new exciting stuff going on that I will leave as a surprise for the new location. But
nice.
It's all on brand for what Get a Clue is all about. But yeah, so we're in the process of setting up, and hopefully we'll be able to have that place open by the end of the month.
That is awesome. So as we talk here, the end of the month being June, and this is going to be released in mid-June, this podcast. So that's exciting. Last part too, and I want to just clear up the confusion because there's two stores. And so the thought for maybe, I know I thought, okay, there two stores at Arden Fair, but one's on the top floor, one's on the bottom floor. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So Goodstock we've had at Arden Fair now for 8 years. And it's on the bottom floor by Abercrombie and Fitch down at the Macy's end. So the new store, Get a Clue, is upstairs. It's directly across from Zoomies, by PacSun, by Vans, by Shoe Palace, all the good shoe stores. So it's more in what I would consider the younger juniors area of Arden Fair. Which is a good, exciting fit for us because believe it or not, there are still people, even though we've been at Goodstock in Arden Fair for 8 years, that come in every day and be like, I never even knew this store was here. you know? So it's going to be a fun journey to see how that goes. And we are going to be differentiating things. There's plenty to go around. So we're not specific on how we're doing it just yet. We haven't made all those decisions. It's going to be kind of something that's going to be fluid that we're going to do. But yeah, so got them both happening.
I love it. And just so you know, I want to make sure that I do have the sticker. This is only for the people watching on YouTube. But as you said, Scott, right? If you get on the Hydro Flask, that is commitment.
That's commitment. I know that Hydro Flask is not going anywhere anytime soon. So.
No way. Oh, my goodness. Well, Scott, I really appreciate the time. This has been such a great conversation. And, I know we've been friends, but and I've said this many times to people, just being able to have this opportunity and say, hey, Scott, tell me your story. Because you don't get to usually have those kind of conversations. So I'm glad we have a platform here where we can be able to share. And it's been a lot of fun.
It's been my pleasure, my privilege. Thank you for having me on. It's been so much fun being able to talk about my story. So thank you.
Yeah, I can feel the passion. And if you want to just share with people, we're going to put it in the show notes and stuff. But how can people find you guys? Like social media, website. Obviously, we want everybody to go to the store and get the experience of Get a Clue, which will open at the end of June. But share that with us.
So if you want to go to the brick and mortar stores, they are both located at Arden Fair Mall, Goodstock Boutique and Get a Clue store. We are on all social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook. It's both Get a Clue and Goodstock, and then getacluestore.com. We are still working on what we're doing with as far as e-commerce goes. but the best way to get stuff from us at this point is to come see us in person.
All right, so there you have it. It's another edition of Experience the Buzz in the books. 90 in and 10 to go for a 100th episode. Again, I want to thank Scott Gilbert of Get a Clue. Also want you to keep in tune for that 100th episode. We are looking to go in studio, possibly, and go live. That's right. So we're putting the details together. The thinking right now is possibly bringing in guests. In fact, I definitely want to bring in guests, whether they're in there live or they phone in or they do a video message, because truly the strength of this show are the people that we have highlighted. And so now we're up to 90, of which of those, depending on the episode, about 80 or so are people that have been featured right here on Experience the Buzz. And I just kind of want to do a check-in and see where they are since we have done their episode. So look forward to that. And of course, we'll continue to give you details as we approach episode number 100. Again, if you would like to be a sponsor on the show, you can check us out on buzzardball.com. Just click on Become a Sponsor. I would love to highlight you as a small business and get the word out for you. Well, however that looks, it is all customizable. And of course, if you would like to get this episode without having to search for it, you can subscribe. Okay, subscribe just means boom, it's coming your way. It's going to drop in your box or give you an alert on YouTube, and you will have it as we release every Friday. Well, that's all I got for now. Talk to you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for joining Steve this week on Experience the Buzz. Steve would love to hear from you. Leave a review or contact Steve directly with any questions at scbuzzard@gmail.com. To see the other adventures of Steve Buzzard, be sure to visit buzzardball.com.